Hey guys, what's going on? Wayne here. So look, as you are well aware, the Toro Dingo is the pioneer of the mini skid steer category. This machine pretty much single-handedly created this entire product category, and it's been around for more than 30 years. And as we've established in other videos, what we're talking about when we talk about mini skid steers are basically really tiny skid steers, right? Little tool carriers, put a bucket on or other types of tools, you can get into a small space and do skid steer type things. And increasingly, even though they're called mini skid steers, the majority of the machines that are actually available on the market now have tracks. But in the last 5 years or so, it's safe to say that interest in the category of mini skid steers has absolutely exploded. It is one of the quickest growing segments within the compact equipment market. And that's because more and more landscapers, contractors, and other professionals are finding more and more ways and more places to put these machines to work. And that's because they combine, like I said earlier, they combine an ability to fit just about anywhere with capable lifting capacities and a lot of compatibility and capability when you add tools into the mix. And when we think about customer segments that benefit the most from these machines, obviously, first we probably start off with landscapers and then maybe residential contractors. But then if you think about others that would benefit tremendously but are underserved, you pretty quickly come to interior construction and demolition contractors. But when it comes to those guys, there's really one problem. The vast majority of mini skid steers out there on the market today are gas and diesel powered. And putting a gas or diesel powered machine indoors, not a great mix. But that's where the new Toro eDingo TX750 comes in. The TX750 is a battery-powered electric mini skid steer that is developed primarily for use in indoor applications such as demolition, renovation, and concrete work. So in this video, we're gonna take a closer look at the Toro eDingo TX750. We'll take a look at the story behind its development, we'll discuss its specs and capability, and more. Let's dig in. Okay, so if we rewind back to the very beginning of the Toro Dingo line back in the 1990s, the major reason that these machines were created were for replacing, at the time really, shovels and wheelbarrows, basically manual digging and manual kind of loading up and unloading or dumping in smaller spaces with hand tools, right? And the reason we did that, move away from shovels and wheelbarrows, is hopefully to make contractors a lot more productive. Now, fast forward to today, and we are well beyond, shovel and wheelbarrow-like capability out of these machines. And while lots of landscapers and other contractors have embraced the mini skid steer and love it not only for its small size and versatility, but also for its lower cost and easier transportability when you compare it to larger machines like skid steers and CTLs, which were the only machines that really had this type of functionality before the mini skid steer came around. When it comes to interior contractors, they really have no other choice but to keep, in a lot of instances, shoveling or sledgehammering and wheeling around the material that they create that results from all that shoveling and hammering, and that's due to the noise and exhaust that most mini skid steers spit out. You just can't have them indoors. Now, compounding this issue is the fact that interior construction and demolition jobs are growing like crazy here in North America. It's one of the fastest growing kind of like job types in the United States. And that's because there's really an overall urbanization trend happening here in the US and in many cities and towns, even smaller towns. People are just increasingly returning to city centers either to live or to do business. And as a result, there's a lot of commercial and residential projects that are utilizing existing structures that were built 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, utilizing these existing structures to house both people and businesses. They gut these older buildings out, they turn them into office spaces, they turn them into apartment buildings or shared spaces, etc. Meanwhile, other businesses and even kind of college campuses are adapting their existing spaces too. And maybe they're not completely doing it an overhaul of what the space is used for, but they are having to kind of increasingly gut these areas out and kind of completely renovate them to basically accommodate the increased use of digital technology or digital technology infrastructure. So the eDingo TX750 is kind of like the right tool at the right time. It really represents a tailor-made machine for this growth of interior construction and demolition that we're seeing here in the US right now. But it's important to note that the eDingo TX750 is not Toro's first battery-powered dingo. That honor goes to the eDingo 500, the TX750's little brother. The 500 is a 30-inch wide wheeled mini skid with about 500 pounds of lift capacity, and it was introduced back in 2020. Now, the new TX750 basically incorporates what Toro learned from launching the Dingo 500 back in 2020, and it kind of evolves upon that concept, right? It evolves it into a machine with more power and more capability than the 500 has. Now, for instance, Toro found out after launching the Dingo 500 that some contractors were actually running this poor little machine right into concrete walls whenever they were doing demo work. Now, luckily, the machines held up to the abuse, but it's safe to say that that Dingo 500 was not really intended for use in just ramming into walls, right? That was really like 500 pounds of lift capacity, wheels. That's really more of a kind of like load and carry machine than anything else. But Toro took that feedback and they worked it into the larger, more reinforced, and more powerful TX750. Now, when it comes to overall capability, the TX750 model name kind of says what it is, right? This is a tracked, hence the TX, mini skid steer with 750 pounds of rated operating capacity and a hinge pin height of 81 inches. Now, not only does the TX750 have the power to absolutely lay into concrete walls during demolition, it also has those tracks, and that makes it better suited for crawling over the resulting rubble that you would get whenever you do demolition work. It's better suited for that type of work and crawling over that work with its tracks than the 500 was with its wheels. Now, the Toro eDingo TX750 comes in two configurations. First is the narrow track version. Now this is really, when we're talking about interior work, the narrow track version is what we're talking about. And then there's the wide track version, and that's really aimed at a different segment. All right, so let's start with that narrow track version. This version features 5.4-inch wide tracks with a B-style tread, and that gives the machine an overall width of about 31.5 inches wide. Now, as the narrow version of the machine and the one suited more for interior spaces, that obviously allows it to easily fit through doorways and maneuver through confined interior spaces like hallways and small rooms. Now, the wide track version, on the other hand, is equipped with turf-friendly 9.1-inch wide tracks. That's kind of help with the ground pressure situation, a little bit adding to the width of those tracks. And then that kind of increases the overall width of the machine to 37 inches wide. Now, at 37 inches wide, obviously you're not going to be getting into a lot of doorways for interior work. That's why this machine is really aimed at landscape contractors looking to use an electric mini skid steer in outdoor applications. Now, you might be thinking, well, you know, unless I really just wanted an electric machine and wanted to switch away from diesel, why would I want an electric machine for outdoor work? Well, Toro says there is landscaper interest in battery-powered mini skid steers like the TX750 due to jobs in areas that either require electric equipment be used on a job due to kind of emissions regulations or restrictions, or they might require these machines on jobs because they're looking to restrict noise, and jobs would include like schools, hospitals, residential areas, and golf courses. So there is demand out there for electric mini skid steers, even wider ones for outdoor applications due to some of these restrictions that a lot of landscapers are starting to see. Now, when it comes to the actual tracks on these machines, Toro says that the TX750 uses the same wide and narrow track part numbers as those found on the diesel-powered TX700, TX1000 Turbo, and TX1300. So there is some very helpful part commonality there. Now, one of the other features of the eDingo TX750 is a fold-up operator platform. Now, when you fold that operator platform up, that's going to make this already very small machine a lot even easier to transport. But more specifically, if you're on a job site that requires kind of elevator access, that means you can fold up this platform, get it through the elevator door, and actually load it up onto the elevator, get it off the elevator a lot more easily. Okay guys, so let's close close things out here on the Toro eDingo TX750 by talking about battery life and machine runtime. Now, when it was developing the eDingo 500, Toro created what it calls a hypercell lithium-ion battery package. That's kind of like their proprietary battery package for the electric machines that they have introduced so far. So like the eDingo 500, the TX750 features that same hypercell lithium-ion battery pack. Now, because this is a larger machine and because it's tracked, mostly due to the fact that this has tracks instead of the wheels, tracks, no matter what we're talking about, when it comes to electric machines, we've heard from literally every OEM across the board that has developed electric machines. If you're developing an electric machine that has tracks, that machine is going to require more battery capacity to run than one with wheels. So more due to the fact that the TX750 has tracks, they actually had to put a larger 22.3 kilowatt hour battery onto the TX750. Now with that battery capacity, the TX750 actually is going to get you all day runtime. And when it runs out, all you have to do is plug this thing into a 240 volt outlet at the end of your workday. And by the time you get back to work the next day, it's going to be fully charged and ready to go. So you get 8 hours of runtime, roughly about 8 hours to recharge it, and then you're back and ready to go for another full day. Now, one final note here as we kind of round out everything else with the battery stuff. Even though this is a battery-powered machine, it still features auxiliary hydraulics, and so that's going to allow you to continue to use, this Dingo with any kind of familiar tools that you're already using with maybe your other Dingo models or other mini skid steers. So this is a hydraulic machine, and it's got about 11 gallons per minute of hydraulic flow and capability. All right, so that is the Toro eDingo TX750, a tracked mini skid steer with about 750 pounds of rated operating capacity, 11 gallons per minute of hydraulic flow. So it's going to be compatible with hydraulic tools that you want to use for either construction or demolition, buckets, breakers, you kind of name it. And so it's really interesting to note too, and we actually have another video that will go deeper into what I'm about to talk about, but this machine was introduced alongside two other new electric machines from Toro. Now those two machines are the latest ultra buggy models that Toro has introduced, and they're the E2500 TS and E2500 THL. Now those are two different models. They're both battery powered. They're using the same hypercell lithium-ion battery pack that this TX750 is using. So you've basically got the same battery pack, but you move it to a tracked buggy. And then what Toro did is they kind of designed these two new buggies to be used in tandem with this new TX750 mini skid steer. And again, the aim there is to make interior construction and demolition applications more efficient, more productive. And you can definitely see if you were using the TX750 for your kind of like demo or cleanup inside and using it to load these two buggies, and then using those buggies to kind of like haul material out of an interior space, how productive and how much extra productivity you would have rather than having to do that manually or do that, like I said, with manual tools. So that's really the aim there. Be sure to check out our video on the new Toro Ultra Buggy E2500 models. We will link that in this video whenever those are ready. But that really is the other kind of like part of this story. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up here on the Toro eDingo TX750. Hope this answered all your questions. It's definitely a really interesting. It's going to be interesting kind of to see how these tools fit into the interior demolition and construction space. There's definitely some a lot of opportunity there, and more rental houses are actually investing in more of these mini skid steers, and they're definitely interested in the electric side as well because it's just less to maintenance basically. So yeah, rental houses is going to be a big one, interior construction demolition as well. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We always appreciate the time. If you have any other questions for us or Toro, be sure to leave those in the comments. If you like this video or found it useful in any kind of way, please do us a favor and hit the like button on the video, and then also subscribe to our channel, Compact Equipment. And if you haven't already and you want to see more content or more coverage of the compact equipment space, do us a favor and check out our website at compactequip.com. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.